I'm Andrew, the analytical cook, and today I'm going to cook for you 8 different kinds of laksa from Southeast Asia using these ingredients. The first laksa that came about is probably the Nonya Laksa, which came from the Peranakans, or Chinese merchants who settled along the coastal parts of Southeast Asia a long time ago and married Malay women. So we see a blend of Chinese noodles with Malay ingredients like coconut milk. Nonya Laksa uses a prawn base, so we first peel some prawn heads and the shells and set aside the meat for later. And fry the prawn heads in oil first till they brown nicely to get more flavor. Then add water to boil out all of the wonderful umami flavors to form our prawn stock. Meanwhile, we can prepare the rempah, or a spice paste that forms the base of any laksa. In the old days, there was no blender, so people used a mortar and pestle, probably the oldest kitchen tool known to mankind but still used today. This is made out of granite, so it's really heavy to crush aromatics and herbs to truly release their juices and form a fibrous paste. Pound some fresh and dried prawns also for more umami. To add more richness to the dish, get an old coconut and do it the old school way and hand squeezing the freshly grated coconut in a cheesecloth to get real traditional coconut milk. The base of a Nonya Laksa is made up of prawn stock, pounded rempah, pounded prawns, and coconut milk. The paste is first fried in a generous amount of oil to infuse the oil with aromatic flavors from the paste. Combine the prawn paste and the prawn stock to form a spicy broth. Cook the prawns, then add in the coconut milk to reveal the orange hue. Season with belacan and finish with some fried tofu puffs. To emphasize on the seafood flavors, blanch some cockles until the water turns grey, then extract the plump flesh. Take only the leaves of the laksa leaf and finely mince it. It gives a peppery, citrusy flavor that's commonly added to laksa as a topping, hence its name, and also julienne some fresh cucumber and blanched bean sprouts for crunch and balance. This is Nonya Laksa. It's rich, spicy, and savory all at the same time, making this probably the most popular version of laksa. For the next laksa, I'll be preparing Katong Laksa, invented in Singapore, where the rice noodles are cut short, so this dish is eaten with a spoon instead of chopsticks. The rest of the ingredients are similar to the Nonya Laksa and also uses a prawn base. I bought this coconut shelling machine online using Revolut to shop on Taobao. To extract coconut milk more efficiently, this machine effectively bites off the outer hard shell of the coconut so that I may peel the brown skin to reveal just the white flesh. Then I save the coconut water and cut them up so that it will fit into this 100% stainless steel cold press juicer. This is a very efficient machine because we're all about efficiency in a financial hub like Singapore. And we could also get a higher yield on coconut milk compared to squeezing by hand. I also managed to save a couple of bucks when I bought this cold press juicer by using a payment app like Revolut to get great exchange rates. We also get to customize a metal card for contactless payments, and Natasha likes a gold card, so I let her design it. Our Meta plan also comes with 10 ClassPass credits a month to work out and burn off the calories from eating many bowls of laksa, and some masterclass videos to learn more cooking tips from the best. I've also used Revolut in my travels when I was in Malaysia, and it also works in over 150 countries so that I could spend like a local with great exchange rates. If you haven't signed up for Revolut yet, consider trying it out, and if you're a first-time user, you could get $30 cashback by signing up using the link below or scan a QR code to get this reward for a limited time only. Because Singaporeans value speed and convenience, we're going to use a blender this time to grind up some dried shrimp to conveniently add more prawn flavor. While for the rempah, we're also going to blend everything up using oil in a 1-part oil to 2-part rempah ratio to get a finer spice paste compared to the hand-pounded paste, which took me like 1 hour versus 2 minutes on a Vitamix. Peel the prawns and fry the shell. Then pour in hot water to infuse into a prawn stock. With that, we should have the ground dried prawn, rempah, and coconut milk, just like the Nonya Laksa. Fry the rempah until the color intensifies to a dark red and turn the raw vegetable flavors into something more deep and savory thanks to the Maillard reaction which happens during the high heat frying process. Then sprinkle in the dried prawn to combine. Set some aside to serve as a condiment later, then add in the prawn stock to create a rich, spicy broth. For the noodles, it might seem odd to cut them up only to eat it with a spoon and not chopsticks, but it actually goes back to the old days when laksa was sold in the streets without a permit. So a laksa hawker thought of cutting short the noodles so that people could eat it quickly before the health inspector arrived. So till today, some laksa establishments in Singapore still serve laksa this way. You just scoop up short strands of noodles with a spoon and slurp away. Like 328 Katong Laksa, where they will not give you chopsticks even if you ask. And by the way, she also beaten Gordon Ramsay in a laksa cooking competition. So back to our broth. Season with belacan and coconut sugar. Then add in the coconut milk at the very end to preserve most of its natural flavors. Add in some tofu puffs so that they can soak up the wonderful broth in spongy little nuggets. We also love cockles for the plump, juicy flesh, and this one tried to escape while I was preparing the other toppings, so blanch them in hot water along with some bean sprouts and cut up noodles. Give it a few more cuts, then scoop a generous amount of broth and tofu puffs, top with plum cockles and fish cake, a nod to convenient processed food, prawns, a spoon of sambal tumis which we reserved earlier, and dust with finely minced laksa leaf. This is Katong Laksa. It's rich, spicy, and very similar in flavors to the Nonya Laksa, except that the eating experience hits differently because you get more components in each bite on the spoon, making it extra delicious for a quick meal. The next laksa is Asam Laksa, and it is one of the famous dishes from Penang. Asam means sour in Malay, and it comes from the use of unripe tamarind pulp, which has a fruity, tangy note. This laksa uses fish as a base instead and a more colorful palette of toppings. This fish is commonly found along coastal fishing towns. To make the base, the fish is first boiled in water to make a fish stock. Then every bone is removed by hand from the flesh, and the meat is hand-minced in the process. Nothing goes to waste when food was scarce, so the bones are also blended with water to extract all of the sweet flavors from the fish. The defining ingredient of this laksa is Asam Jawa. It comes in a block like this, made from the unripe fruit of a tamarind tree. When the fruit is fully ripe, it comes as brown pods like this with a sweet sticky pulp that's good for a snack. On the other hand, this is known as tamarind slices, which is a misnomer because it actually does not come from the tamarind tree, but another tree called Asam Galugor, native in Asia. The small pumpkin-like fruit is sliced thinly and then dried into peels to impart an intense sour note to soups and gravies, whereas Asam Jawa is a mix of sweet and sour. So for Asam Laksa, we use both types to get the signature tangy flavor by first soaking a chunk of it in some water, then hand squeezing it to rub off as much of the sticky pulp as possible, and strain off the seeds for this brown tangy liquid. For the rempah, it's the standard blend of aromatics, but this time we use this pink flower known as torch ginger. It's actually an unopened flower bud of a ginger plant, and it adds an iconic citrusy tangy flavor. We'll also use some of the pink part for garnish later, so add some fish stock to blend it up into a smooth paste. To add a more fruity tang, fresh pineapple is pureed, preferably a medium ripe one to infuse the broth with a bright tropical flavor. With that, we have 5 bowls of ingredients: the minced fish flesh, the blended fish bone stock, the rempah, the Asam Jawa, and the pineapple puree. Set aside the minced flesh, and using the fish stock from earlier, we combine the rest of the pastes. Season with dried Asam Keping, belacan or fermented shrimp, and some palm sugar. And of course, a generous bunch of laksa leaves. Leave it to boil for about an hour until all of the flavors have fused together. Then strain to remove the leaves and unwanted grit, then add in the minced fish flesh to form the Asam Laksa broth with plenty of chewy fish bits. Before we plate, we prepare 7 fresh toppings. Cut up a ripe pineapple for maximum sweetness, some red chilies, onions, torch ginger minced, lettuce, cucumber, and fresh mint leaves to highlight the sweet and sour flavors in the broth while bringing some freshness and crunch. Finally, dress the thick rice noodles with a generous amount of Asam fish broth and have fun decorating the dish with fresh colorful toppings. The final kick is this dark shrimp paste known as heko, made in Penang also. Dilute with a bit of water into a thick sauce. This is Asam Laksa. It's a lot of work to make the broth and fresh toppings, but the flavors and the textures here make this dish complex and a signature of Penang, and it's really fun to eat. The next laksa is Laksa Utara, meaning laksa from the north, referring to the northern states of Malaysia like Kedah or Penang. So the ingredients are similar to the Asam Laksa, except that Asam Jawa is not used, leading to a unique broth color that is unlike any other laksa. This laksa is also a fish-based laksa and uses the same technique of boiling the fish and separating the flesh from the bones, and the bones are also blended to extract every bit of flavor. But this time, the fish flesh is also pureed to form a fish puree. The rempah is relatively more simple with just onions, garlic, fresh and dried chilies. From the 5 bowls of ingredients we had earlier, we're now down to just 3: fish puree, fish bone stock, and a rempah. Combine everything with the fish stock from earlier and add in the dried asam keping. Season with belacan and some laksa leaves left whole on the branch, and torch ginger flowers for this rustic broth. Then remove the leaves and flowers, leaving behind a thick fish gravy. Then blanch the fresh noodles and prepare the fresh toppings of onions, cucumber, lettuce, red chili, lime, and boiled egg. Serve over fresh thick noodles and add the toppings. This is Laksa Utara. It's a gravy-style laksa using plenty of boiled fish, and is actually healthier because no oil is used in cooking this, just like Asam Laksa. Another variation of laksa is Laksam, spelled Laksa with an M on the back. It comes from Kelantan and Terengganu, the east coast states of peninsular Malaysia, and it features thick rolls of fresh noodles. It's also a fish-based laksa, but with coconut milk this time. The defining feature of Laksam is freshly steamed rolls of noodles, made of mostly rice flour and some wheat flour. Add sufficient water to form a medium-thick batter. Then grease a plate with oil to prevent sticking, and add a thin layer of batter each time to steam until bubbles form. Gently lift the edges and fold into rolls. For the Laksam soup base, it's also the same base of fish puree, fish stock, but a rempah made out of just onions, garlic and ginger without any chilies. And this time, coconut milk is introduced for a creamier gravy that also lightens the color to a warm grey. Season with asam keping, belacan, and bring to a boil to infuse, and finish with freshly ground black pepper. The fresh toppings of Laksam is a platter of raw veggies finely sliced from laksa leaves, cucumber, torch ginger flower, cabbage, long beans, bean sprouts, and lime. But what about the red chilies? So far we have not used it yet, because a fresh raw sambal is also prepared, starting with some toasted belacan, a touch of lime juice, and fresh red chilies. If you don't slice the chilies, it won't come together as a paste, as the pestle is too blunt to break down the skin, so you got to slice the chilies thinly to get a nice paste. To serve the rice rolls, cut off the ends to get neat circular rolls, the signature of Laksam. Scoop a generous amount of coconut fish gravy over some rice rolls, topped with fresh veggies and a raw sambal relish. This is Laksam, and we really appreciate how soft and chewy the rice noodles are, with a homemade feel to it. The gravy may look light in color, but it's so rich and creamy in flavor. The next laksa is Laksa Johor, unique to the Johor state, and interestingly uses spaghetti noodles unlike any other laksas we've seen. This is an elaborate recipe fit for royalty and special occasions, as is believed to have been inspired by a trip to Italy by the Sultan of Johor in the 1800s. He tried pasta and loved it, so he came back instructing his chefs to make a dish out of it, which eventually led to spaghetti being served with a rich Malay-style seafood gravy. It is a fish and prawn-based laksa, and this fancy gravy is first prepared by separating the meat of prawns from its shells and a white fish like white snapper from its bones. Then boil the fish and prawn meat and make a stock out of the shells and bones. Then the meat is combined with some dried anchovies and dried shrimp to use both fresh and dried seafood to double the flavor, then blend with the stock to create a luxurious seafood puree. The rempah is made out of a full base of aromatics blended with 50% oil along with candle nut and asam keping into a rich and complex spice paste. Since this is a dish made for a sultan, the spice powders are made from scratch by toasting an array of aromatic spices then ground into a fine powder. Cold press the coconut milk and we have the Laksa Johor base built out of fish and prawn puree, fish and prawn stock, a rempah, freshly squeezed coconut milk, and toasted ground spices. Fry the rempah paste to remove the rawness and caramelize to a dark red. Then set some aside as a garnish later before adding in the spice ground powder, the fish and prawn stock and puree, and a generous amount of coconut milk to create a rich, spicy, coconutty seafood gravy. This dish also calls for kerisik, which is usually reserved for rendang to thicken and enrich the gravy. Kerisik is made by first grating a coconut, then toss and toast it in a dry wok till nicely brown all over. Then in a mortar and pestle, pound and grind it until it turns into a rich, oily brown coconut butter. It takes about 15 minutes of non-stop pounding to get there, and it adds a really intense toasted coconut flavor to this special laksa gravy. Then the fresh toppings are prepared with fresh herbs like finely minced laksa leaves, basil leaves, and fresh veggies, long beans, cucumber, bean sprouts, onion, and even salted radish. To serve this fusion dish, twist a fork of spaghetti, spoon a thick amount of gravy with fresh toppings, sprinkle some laksa leaf all over like fancy Italian fare, and a dollop of sambal to crown this laksa pasta with fresh lime. This is Laksa Johor, and this dish really pulls out all of the stops in Malay cooking, making this a super premium dish reserved for special occasions. Since Natasha has never tried Laksa Johor before even though she grew up there, I made this today for her to try. And it tastes like a rich seafood bolognese but with Malaysian flavors in this pasta fusion that's definitely a laksa for special occasions. The next major laksa is from East Malaysia. Sarawak Laksa is defined by the use of both prawn and chicken base with very thin rice noodles, topped with shredded egg omelette to soak up the broth. The laksa leaf is noticeably absent here as it's not essential, unlike the other laksas where its flavor is dominant in the toppings. Sarawak is world-renowned for its pepper, and traditionally this laksa is also topped with coriander sprouts or just coriander leaves for the fully grown version. The base is made up of the heads and shells of fresh prawns, and also the bones and skin of a chicken. Fry the prawn heads with a touch of oil, then cover with boiling water and add the chicken bones to make a stock out of it for at least 2 hours to get decent flavor. The rempah is made out of just the usual onions, chilies, and ginger, but it also has a significant amount of candle nut. Candle nuts are frequently used in Southeast Asian cooking and has a texture of cashews or macadamia nuts but cheaper to give gravies like laksa or curries a rich creamy texture. Blend everything with a mix of oil into a paste. To truly make a Sarawak Laksa, We use Sarawak peppercorns that were renowned because it's not just peppery but also very aromatic. Add in some coriander seeds also and toast them all to release their flavors before grinding into a fine powder. Extract the coconut milk and we have the base of a Sarawak Laksa, which consists of a prawn and chicken stock, a rempah, coconut milk, and ground Sarawak peppercorns. Fry the rempah until the oil separates, then add in the ground spices. Once the rempah has caramelized into a sambal, set some aside as a relish later. Then add in plenty of stock to infuse, and after boiling, strain the stock again to remove any grit. Then add in the coconut milk to finish. This style of laksa doesn't use laksa leaves, and it also doesn't have any sediments to it, unlike any other laksas we've seen, but it's still called Sarawak Laksa. It also uses very thin rice noodles, or bihun, which comes in a dried form, so submerge in hot water for a few minutes until softened. Blanch some bean sprouts, and for the signature egg omelette, beat some eggs and fry in a hot pan until nicely browned on both sides. Cook the prawn meat and the chicken in the laksa soup, then cut up the egg omelette and chicken meat into shreds as a topping. Dress the rice noodles with the spicy coconut curry, top with fried egg strips, shredded chicken, prawns, and sambal. The final topping is coriander sprouts by sprouting coriander seeds, which is actually a microgreen used in fancy restaurants, but it's also traditionally added to Sarawak Laksa. This is Sarawak Laksa. The thin rice noodles bihun work well with the laksa too, and we like how the fried egg omelette soaks up the rich spicy coconut broth that really hits home. This laksa series won't be complete without a mention from Indonesia. Laksa Ayam Betawi is a chicken-based laksa, and Betawi refers to the indigenous people in Jakarta, Indonesia. While laksa leaf is not used here, we see the use of other fresh herbs and also the return of Asam Jawa as a souring agent in this dish. The base is a chicken stock made from separating the bones and skin of a chicken. We can get a little more flavor by rendering the chicken skin with a little oil first before adding the bones and boiling water to extract all of the flavors. The rempah starts by blending the aromatics with oil into a smooth paste and toasting some candle nuts and spices to elevate them before grinding into a spice powder. For this laksa, coconut milk is also used to enrich the base of chicken stock, rempah, toasted spices, and asam jawa. Saute the rempah and the spices until the oil bubbles break out. Then add in the chicken stock, Indonesian bay leaf, lemongrass, and lime leaf to gently infuse their flavors. Season with a good amount of asam jawa, a tomato, and potato. Then cook the dry brined chicken till fully done, and when ready to serve, add in the coconut milk to finish this creamy laksa broth. Blanch some bean sprouts and the thin rice noodles, pan fry an omelette, and cut up the chicken into strips just like before. For veggies, this is lemon basil, essential in Indonesian cuisine. It has a strong lemony fragrance with a basil flavor, so pick just the leaves. To serve, dress some rice noodles with a generous amount of coconut broth, top with shredded chicken, bean sprouts, egg strips, and some lemon basil. This is Laksa Ayam Betawi. It tastes kind of like tom yum with a lemony savouriness and enriched with coconut milk. Although we couldn't cover every type of laksa out there, these are the 8 major types of laksas we can find in Southeast Asia. Laksa is a very diverse dish as the base, noodles, and toppings vary widely across the region. The noodles are served either immersed in the soup or with a gravy topping, both enhanced by a spice paste, coconut milk, and a souring ingredient. What makes laksa different from curry noodles is the use of laksa leaves as opposed to curry leaves. And what makes laksa so popular? I think it comes down to how there are so many flavors in the broth. Spicy and earthy from the aromatics, savory and sweet from a protein stock, creamy coconut milk, and the tangy citrusy flavors from tamarind and the laksa leaves. It really is salt, fat, acid, and heat in one bowl. and every region has its own version made using local ingredients with a history behind it. What they all have in common is that it's a spicy noodles dish eaten hot for that extra comforting warmth of home.